Well, this is bad. This is very, very bad.
And what do you want?
Your brain is completely see-through.
So you're something different?
Choose.
I have chosen.
What should we call me?
Of course. Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
One is real, the other's fake. And just to make it more interesting.
What? What don't they know?
This time there's three of us.
Anything could happen.
Ditch this, mate.
Here come the drums!
Hello, and welcome to Pull to Open, your choice for a Doctor Who podcast that takes you on a random journey through the entire history of the show. My name is Chris Taylor.
And I'm Pete Paschal, and most of the time I am here to remind you that Chris and I are a couple of journalists, a couple of longtime Doctor Who fans, a couple of people who hold controversial opinions occasionally about that show, but more on that in a minute. But I'm not going to do that this week, okay? And that's because there's an X factor this week. There is something you don't know, dear listener. And Chris, what don't they know?
This time, there's three of us. Welcome, Damla from the Come Along Pond podcast.
Hello.
Let's see if we can get the OS to give us thumbs ups and fireworks. I don't even know how that works.
Yay! Thumbs up,
There it
fireworks. There it is.
I love
Hey,
that.
I know. Raising the roof.
I love that.
Damla, tell the people who don't know about Come Along Pond about Come Along Pond.
Well, first of all, hello.
Hi.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you for having me. So, Come Along Pond podcast, which should have been called Come Along Pondcast, I know. But anyway, basically, it's me and my best friend Elliot. We talk about Doctor Who, mainly New Who at the moment, and we kind of go at it from a lens of just like it's like you and your friend sitting down, probably gone out the night before, you sat down the next morning, hangover, and you're watching Doctor Who and you're making silly little commentary. Like, it's just two people sitting having a gag.
Love it.
And it's mainly also like we kind of look at a lot of stuff from like a queer lens as well, because we're both queer. So yeah, that's kind of like what the pod is really. And we also talk about silly things like, you know, Rose Tyler's outfits and why we love them. Honestly, it's a gag.
Rose Tyler's outfit. Wow. Okay, I want to listen to that part.
I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I've been a fan of your pod for a while, and I first came to see it when I was browsing around on Instagram.
Okay.
By the way, Pull to Open 63 on Instagram. And feel free to plug your own.
And Come Along Pond on Instagram?
Yeah, it is. It is, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I saw you guys do some commentary sometimes, and you clip in sort of footage from the show.
Yeah.
Great idea, by the way. I wonder where you got that idea. Anyway, you guys always have like fun stuff to say. You guys clearly like have really great banter, and it's just a pleasure to listen to you guys. But one of the things you guys did, not so recently actually, but I think it was about a few months back now, you actually did this thing where you did a whole show on Doctor Who trailers. Like for the new series, like all the trailers from the beginning to the end, all the main ones anyway.
Yeah.
And like for the series. And I was just like, oh, that was a great idea. I personally love trailers, and I just listened to that whole thing the way through, and I definitely disagree with some of your stuff, but generally I thought your feel was right. I will die on this hill. I have to say that I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast. The Series 5 trailer, which will become very apt for what we're about to talk about. But it's my opinion the best, one of the best, if not the best, just because it's like the Doctor and Amy on a field, and then it's like anywhere and everything blows up and stuff. And I just feel like, even though it's sort of nonsensical, it to me that epitomizes the Doctor Who, about how just crazy it is, and just the feel of that trailer. I've just always loved. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest, but also way to go on doing that idea. I was like, damn it, we can't do that idea now, Chris, because they did it.
No, you can. Of course you can. You guys have different opinions.
You guys did the definitive one.
And there are more trailers now, so, you know.
This is true. No, you guys do the updated version.
Yeah, I think this may be an indication of how relatively smart our podcasts are. You did the trailers, which is like really easy, right? You just watch a few trailers, like 30 seconds each. We did all the cold opens in New Who. We were like, this will be easy. And they're all like 5-10 minutes each. Like, oh dear God. Yes, we did that to avoid watching The Seeds of Death, which is 6 episodes, and we ended up watching more than 6 episodes worth of cold opens. So, good job. Congratulations. I really want to listen to the trailer episode now, so I'll be doing that after this. But we are on this random journey, and Pete, you want to catch the fine folks up on where we've been so far?
Previously on Pull to Open. So we were in New Who doing some fun stuff with Daleks after a sort of, this is the final part of our Dalek trilogy when we did things on, what was it, Death to the Daleks and
the Chase.
Yeah, that's how we kicked off the new year. And we finished that trilogy off with The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar. All good stuff. Must come to an end.
Familiar story, yes.
Oh yes, especially the drama of Davros and the Doctor, which I don't know. That was a fine one. And then it took us back to Old Who, barely, just creeping back slightly into the classic series in one of the last episodes of the classic series for The Curse of Fenric. And I won't say so much about that now because we actually have poll results from The Curse of Fenric, because quite controversially, perhaps Chris and I may have disagreed with many classic series fans on that one.
That's right. And you may want to put us in the guillotine for our opinions on that.
That's right.
Speaking of the guillotine,
which we narrowly avoided along with the TARDIS crew in the Reign of Terror, a partially missing episode, which we did last time. And again, I'll rant again. I don't know why this isn't just on BritBox or wherever you can find Doctor Who, because they have animated episodes, and I don't think it's too crazy to go between the two. So,
oui, justice pour le Reign de Terror.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's terrible French accent. Anyway, we got back in our TARDIS after really wanting to go forward for a long time out of Old Who. And Pete, where did our randomizer take us?
You might say the randomizer made the decision.
It did.
To bring us to Series 5, Episode 7, Amy's Choice.
Yes, a.k.a. The Dream Lord, that's original title. Amy's
really?
Choice. Yeah. Amy's Choice, perhaps a little less on the nose.
Good to know.
Than the sort of let's reveal who's in this episode. The Dream Lord. It's like calling, Terror of the Autons the Master. It kind of gives away who's going to show up in it. But anyway.
Yeah, it's really good to get to Series 5 because we haven't done that in a little while. And it's a favorite among a lot of people in New Who. This is obviously Matt Smith's first season. And I think there's going to be, it's an interesting one to get out of sequence too. That's the whole thing about Pull to Open is we come at these stories cold, which is a lot different on occasion than going through the run and on sort of a rewatch. So this will be a great one to talk about, with you, Damla.
Yeah.
And,
Series 5, we've only done The Beast Below. Is that correct? That's the only thing we've done here so far?
It sounds right. I think the randomizer has kind of neglected Smith. There's a big chunk of Smith it just has ignored in a lot of that Series 5 and Series 6.
And especially, the Pond era. Yeah.
Yeah, this is only the second. Yeah, you're right. It's the only second one in Series 5 if you don't count A Christmas Carol. I think that was technically the first of Series 6. I don't know. I don't know how they do the specials. They shuffle them in between seasons and they just kind of put them where they make sense, I guess.
Yeah, but certainly 5, renowned as a great season. Damla, you feel like you're on that side of the fence. The season in general is like one of the strongest of the show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my co-host Elliot wouldn't agree. We both argue about it a lot on our podcast, actually, because I love Series 5. I love all of Matt's run, to be honest, but Elliot isn't as keen on it. But that's for another time.
I think even if you're not a fan of Smith, you got to look at some of the big highlights of Series 5 as some of the best of New Who's done, I think.
Agreed,
even if you might not like the overall arc. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it. And you can get into it, listeners and viewers on YouTube, because this is a podcast that now has a membership program. Yes, that's right. If you're watching on YouTube, you can become a true companion of Pull to Open. For the low price of $7.99 a month, you not only get that warm feeling in your hearts of supporting some of your favorite Doctor Who programming, but you can also get the podcast a day early. That's right. True companions get to listen to Pull to Open Fridays, not Saturdays. So there's some privileges attached.
Means you get to walk around all Saturday with a very smug look on your face at all the folks out there, all the other Doctor Who fans who haven't listened yet. And you're like, yeah, I know what's coming. I know what the randomizer chose. But yes, you can get to be a Viscount. You get to pop up in the screen just like Damla did. And you may also, if you do that, get to participate in the next bit that I always dread. And thank you, Damla, for being here. I hope that you're going to join us in this next part. Pete, what's it called?
What's that? Is it the Whomoji Challenge? Well, yes, it is. Yes, it's the Whomoji Challenge, the glorious time of the week where I get to torture Chris and an occasional guest with emojis that I describe, and they will need to guess the Doctor Who story that those emojis correspond to. And don't worry, I will put them in the chat, although previous guests have said that the chat is microscopic text.
Yes.
So you're going to have to maybe scroll.
Yes, if you can read the tiny emoji that we get in our little Zencaster window here. Yes, it won't, not available. Well, it does actually pop up on the screen for our viewers.
Okay.
On Spotify and YouTube, so they can play along.
Nice one.
Okay. All right, you guys, here we go. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Fingers on buzzers.
All right. This is a...
Oh, boy.
Aptly, this is going to be a tricky one. It's
tricky
5
choice.
emojis.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay? So, the first one is a silhouette of a person.
Okay.
Second one is another silhouette of a person.
Okay.
The fourth one is a city skyline with the sunrise, I believe.
Hang on, the fourth one?
The fourth emoji.
Okay, what was the third
There's
one?
3 silhouettes.
3 silhouettes, okay, yes. 3 silhouettes in a city.
City skyline, the
Okay.
sunrise. And then it's the little island with the umbrella on it.
Oh, okay.
You know? So I'm going to put all this in the chat. Hold on.
Okay,
Okay.
so like the palm tree, you know.
Exactly.
Island. Okay.
There it is.
Silhouettes, city, vacation, island. Is it City of Death? No. Although City of
Not
Death is
City
a
of Death.
holiday.
I was stupidly thinking maybe Silence in the Library because of the shadows and the Vashnarada and all that. But I don't know how an island would come into it, or like it's not a holiday where they go in the I forget what it's called. The where you go into the library in your head. Exactly.
You know, the Doctor
Exactly.
Moon bit. Yes.
Exactly, the Doctor Moon bit.
Not Silence in the Library.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
3 shadows.
Yeah.
3.
It's the skyline again. It's the skyline that's throwing me off because it's making me think gridlock, but that's not gridlock. Like the rest of it isn't gridlock, so it's definitely
it would
not
be.
that.
It might be 2 shadows and a cat.
Exactly. If there was a cat, yeah, exactly, that would be it. Oh man.
Well, Pete, you might have to give us the big hint.
It is a little unusual.
New.
It's a tricky one. So I will give you the hint that don't get too fixated on the 2 emojis at the end.
Okay.
Think about those silhouettes at the beginning.
Count the shadows.
Well, yeah, that's why I said what I said.
Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness.
What's another thing a silhouette could represent other than a shadow?
A death.
Oh my god.
Oh, is it fires? No, it's not fires of Pompeii.
Wait.
It's like those are people, but they're.
Oh my god!
not
No.
there.
No, it can't be Army of Ghosts, can it? Because no, that doesn't make sense. No. Yes. Army of Ghosts. Doomsday. Army of Ghosts.
It's Army of Ghosts.
Yeah. Ah.
Nice one.
Yay!
There you go.
Congratulations, Damla. You get to walk away with that trophy.
There
Which
it
will be
is.
delivered to you in the form
New
of an emoji.
champion. New champion of the Whomoji Challenge.
Yay!
Down Come Along Pond. Once again, Grace, Chris, you've been embarrassed by our guest.
I've never been more happy to be embarrassed by a guest.
But yeah, the island was throwing me off a little bit. I don't know how
It's a bit weird, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's maybe the what's the place that they end up at the end?
Canary Wharf? Is that
No. It's Dalek Bay or something.
Dalek of Stranden.
Yeah,
Bad Wolf Bay.
Also, that she's stranded in the other dimension, so I guess that's kind of like being on an island,
like a desert
maybe
island.
that's a stretch.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, you could say, that's sort of a representation of Canary Wharf there.
You could do.
Little wharf there next to a city. Might be a better way of ish.
So thank you, Joe Rep, for submitting those. You too can, of course, submit a Whomoji for the Whomoji Challenge, and you can do that by leaving a review for Pull to Open on the Apple Podcasts app. Great place to reach out to us. You can leave that Whomoji as either the title of your review or in the body of it. All you got to do is just submit it, and you probably might have put a star rating in there. Again, seems 5 stars for some reason. Don't know why, but you leave whatever you want.
And that's right. And if you are itching to do more as you listen to this podcast, because who just listens to a podcast these days? You can look at your screen if you're on Spotify. Pull up from the bottom. There's a poll. That's right. It's Poll to Open, where you can disagree with our opinions ahead of time, which seems like a very timey-wimey way to do it. And we have some results now from, as previously mentioned, our visit to Curse of Fenric. And Pete, the people know like our opinions.
It's pretty overwhelming that the fans regard this as a Viscount banger, which I kind of knew and I kind of understand. So the Viscount banger, far and away the biggest garner of votes in our poll, which is at about a little over half. So it's it's a solid majority.
53.8%, a solid majority, not even a pretend majority that you stitch together with first past the post shakiness. No, this is a proper Viscount banger. People properly love it, and we didn't. Our ratings were, I gave it a Ogron, our worst rating, absolutely irredeemable. And Pete, you gave it a Professor Hater, which is a bad episode, but we learned something. They tried something new. And we did say at the time, like, we actually invited people to join us on the podcast, talk to us about Curse of Fenric. Why do you love it so much? What is it about it? What aspect of it? So I want to renew that call for people to pop up on our screens like Damla just did, and just come school us, please. Damla, is this one you've seen?
I haven't. I'm sorry. Fake fan. I haven't seen it.
Oh no. Look, I had not seen it in its entirety until we did it last week. Like I got stuck at episode 1 for many years, so I
feel better.
Don't worry about that.
So Chris, in addition to the poll, we actually do have a Q&A on Spotify, and at least one of the fans has answered your question, and I'm going to read it here.
Oh, okay.
The handle is not visible, so sorry I can't attribute this to anyone, but it says
it's
a good multi-layered story that is very atmospheric. Production values aren't bad, and the action is actually quite good. Completely disagree with a lot of the criticism on this one. Fair enough. I think the production values are demonstrably bad, but we can agree to disagree on that. And again, I don't think we slammed it purely for that, because if you're a Doctor Who fan, especially of the classic series, I mean, production values, you can't have it hold up that high on your list because it was never a big budget production. But I think even with that grading on a curve of classic Who, this one is not good. Again, I'm not necessarily blaming the crew so much as the budget was slashed and the BBC was just trying to snuff it out at the time. But it's you can't really get past that. It looks like it was shot in someone's backyard.
Yeah, on terrible video. You do better with an iPhone these days recording the Curse of Fenric. But okay, well, that's good to know. Our audience loves it. They love the McCoy era. Hopefully the Randomizer will take us back there soon. And we can have more opinions that you disagree with.
All right. Is it time?
It's time, yes.
Okay.
It's time to choose, but there is no choice at all. Kind of maybe appropriately for the story. There's no real choice here. Because we always open our commentary with TLDW, Too Long Didn't Watch, Too Long Doctor Who. Or Too Long Did Watch, in this case, because who can't sit through 50 minutes of the Doctor, Amy, Rory, and Toby Jones? Yes. So, Pete, it is your turn to summarize. This is what we do with TLDW. We summarize in the space of 1 minute per New Who episode. That's what you have.
I do have that, don't I?
1 minute to summarize this story. How are you feeling about that?
It's kind of not good, just because every time I feel like it's straightforward and I can do this in a minute, it just never happens for some reason. Because this is pretty straightforward and it feels like I should be able to describe it in a minute, but just history's guide is like, I'm gonna totally screw this up.
You know what's going to happen? You're going to do a perfect TLDW. It's going to be absolutely pitch perfect, and then you're going to realize this is a dream.
Oh,
we're not actually doing the podcast yet. You've just woken up.
Oh, that is going to happen, isn't it?
Right.
Okay.
You'll hear the sound of birdsong at the close of 1 minute. All right, now I'm going to get my
wake up
timer ready.
right now.
Wake up! Or is this a dream within a dream? All right, so Pete, you have 1 minute for the official pull to open summary of Amy's Choice in 3, 2, 1, go.
So the Doctor is visiting Amy and Rory in the future in Ledworth, and they're married, and Amy's pregnant, and oh my God, wait, they just woke up. They're in the TARDIS. That was a nightmare for the Doctor because it was so boring. But actually, wait a minute, now they wake up again, and they're back in Ledworth, and it's like, hold on, which is the dream and which is reality? They don't know. Well, what's happening? Well, there's something called the Dream Lord, this guy who's sort of manipulating them, and he's basically put them in both of these situations. One's a dream, one's real, and they have to guess which one, but there's also a deadly danger in both, and the TARDIS are going to get frozen by this cold star, and Ledworth, there's these aliens that have taken over the old people there and are killing people. So they have to sort of figure things out, and they're trying. But what happens is Rory actually gets killed in the village by one of the aliens, and then he disintegrates, even though while they're freezing to death in the TARDIS because the TARDIS has no power. And so what happens is Amy decides she wants to sacrifice herself because she doesn't want to live without Rory. So she and the Doctor crash a car. It blows up. They wake up in the TARDIS. They think it's real. It's not. Neither one of these things was real. And the Doctor kicks it back to reality by blowing up the TARDIS.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
Very good. 1 minute and 2 seconds. I call that a win.
I'm taking it. It's a win in overtime.
It's a win in overtime. You basically sank it at the buzzer. Yeah, it is. I guess it's a pretty basic story when you looked at it. It's a fake out. It's a double fake out. And I guess that maybe the first thing to talk about here is that this isn't. It's not necessarily Inception, right? It's kind of easier to follow than the dream within a dream within a dream, even though it is a complex structure when you look at it, that it's like both dreams are fakes and they're actually in a different TARDIS. I don't feel like you're necessarily left wondering or thinking too much about which is the dream, which is reality, right?
No. I think. I mean, you mean during or after?
During. I mean, it's sort of, to me, kind of clear that Upper Ledworth. By the way, you said Ledworth in the. I'll just correct you there. They moved to Upper Ledworth because it was a different Welsh village they were filming in, so it had to be Upper Ledworth.
I think it was like the adjacent town.
Yes,
it's or like part of the town that is a township. Yeah, because it definitely looked like a completely different place. It
is literally a different place, different Welsh village that they filmed in, so it had to be the slightly fancier but even more dull Upper Ledworth. But that's like, there's no universe in which that is reality, right?
Exactly. So this is the thing. So see, Moffat, this is Moffat's first season as showrunner, and one of his hallmarks throughout his run was that he didn't treat companions in the traditional way. They were often... definitely starting with Amy and Rory, had their own lives, and the Doctor would sort of pop in and out of them. And I think that was a really cool choice and really interesting what he did with them, with Clara, and with Bill. The problem is this episode comes very early in Moffat's run, so we're not used to that language yet. And so him having one of the dreams in this sort of future version where the Doctor is just popping in, that just seems so obviously right away the dream. Yeah. Because of course you're not going to continue the series from that point in some way, or we're going to go back to TARDIS adventures with Amy and Rory as we know. So surely the TARDIS is reality, is kind of what you're meant to think.
Yeah, it's interesting that this was just, to zoom out and look at the history of the show. This was the place of this story in season 5 was originally occupied by the Doctor's wife.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. It was going to be in this position that just kept getting pushed until eventually next season, right?
Yeah.
But that was going to be the one that would have the burden of proving that Amy really loves Rory, which is what this story is all about, right? But yeah, so that's the lift that this thing has to make. And if you had switched it, I feel like maybe we would have had more time to sort of think, well, maybe this is 5 years down the line, especially in season 6, which is kind of getting timey-wimey all over the place. The Doctor living on fast forward and all of that. But Damla, I want to bring you in. What was your feeling about watching this now versus did you actually see it at the time, or did you come to it later? Yeah.
So I was very much watched it at the time. Yeah, this was I've been watching it continuously since 2006. So I was watching it at the time, and I remember I've consistently loved this episode, to be honest with you. But I agree with that, what you guys were just saying there, where it's like, it's very obvious that in no way, especially so early in the season, that, the life in Ledworth would be real. There's just, that was never a doubt in my mind. And that's like, I'd say for me, like one of the only negatives of the episode is like, girl, be for real. That was never going to be the one.
Another reason, I mean, it's not just, the fact that would be weird to skip 5 years ahead, and it's not just the ponytail, which I think also makes it.
Yes.
Like, Amy would never accept that. But also, it's the sense of, like, they keep falling asleep, like, in the middle of the town.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't someone notice?
Exactly.
Someone remark on that? It seems a bit
and there's
weird.
so many like even the monsters, where there's a point where they claim that our planet was destroyed because of some neighbor, and now we're just going to be bullies to everyone else. And the Doctor actually says that's credible. To which I'm just like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound credible at all. Like that sounded like some slapdash thing some writer put in that we would hopefully like not notice was absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
So there's just sort of signal after signal that this isn't real. But that supposedly sets up the mislead that of course the TARDIS is real, and then it turns out it's not. And then that's like, oh, okay, they're both dream worlds. The thing is, the TARDIS world is so similar to the real world. They just sort of end up back in the TARDIS again.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of a blink and you miss it moment. Like you could, if you're not watching closely enough, think that the TARDIS world, that the cold sun world was actually the real one, and just something has happened to like very quickly heat the TARDIS up or something, right? You really have to be paying attention at that moment.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I wish they'd maybe. It doesn't really add much that they're just back in the TARDIS. I wish they'd sort of done something a little bit different, and like maybe they were somewhere and it wasn't just random dust or whatever the Doctor finds at the end, that there's something slightly more to it. I'm not, endorsing as being a two-parter or something, or that might not be a terrible idea, but just that because it's like this a sudden reveal of like, oh, this is the actual reality. It's like, yeah, but it's just like what we just saw. So it's not really anything.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to hate on this episode, right? It's so likable. Everyone in it is giving 110%. And we've got to give a shout out before too long to Toby Jones.
Yes.
And it's interesting coming here from most recently The Witcher's Familiar and Magician's Apprentice, because the randomizer loves Missy. The randomizer's taken us to a lot of Missy, and we always give props to Missy. She always steals the show whenever she's on, and Toby Jones kind of steals the show here, but in a very different way.
Yeah,
right. He's totally understated. He's not chewing the scenery. And he has this sort of sinister silkiness, especially when he repeats Jackie Tyler's line of, well, anything could happen. Did you have a little throw up in your mouth moment when that happened?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen. Maybe this, I don't know how inappropriate this would be for the podcast, but there's on YouTube, there's a compilation that I urge everyone to go and watch expeditiously. And it's called Stephen Moffat writing Doctor Who with his right hand for 9 minutes. You just know for a fact that that's in there. Like, when he said that, I was like, first of all, Jackie Tyler, icon, legend, living legend. You could never. Don't even try it. Second of all, absolutely disgusting. Don't even. Like, literally, when he said it, I was like, really? Really? Oh, and the dressing gown. I just couldn't. And I know that's the point. But, like, still, I was like, oh.
And you know what? If the Dream Lord is part of the Doctor's own consciousness, then we have to come face to face with the fact that the Doctor kind of might like to be in a dressing gown around Amy Pond. And you know what? I like to think, here's my headcanon here, that he's actually channeling his Peter Davison era. And we went to Black Orchid, where Peter Davison is in a dressing gown, and that, yes, well, might you thumbs that up, random algorithm that's looking at my camera? Because that is, we've had people say that was kind of their sexual awakening was Peter Davison in a dressing gown and nothing else in Black Orchid. But let's just say he looks a bit better than Toby Jones does.
Well, I want to cricket something you said, Chris, and pull on a strand there, not the dressing gown. But
no. We're not that kind of podcast.
But the suggestion that there, on some level, the Doctor might have some attraction to Amy. And it's funny, I watched this on the Blu-ray, which I've had for a while. And there is, on this particular disc, there is an extra scene, which actually takes place well before this adventure. It's supposed to take place before Vampires of Venice. And this would have been right after Amy's made her pass at the Doctor. And so then there's this whole extra scene in the TARDIS where she's kind of like trying to take apart a little bit of his sexuality and like, are you into girls? Like, what's going on? And he's kind of like trying to say like, no, I just whatever. Well, and she figures out he's had previous companions.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, exactly how many of them were girls? And he's like, well, I don't know, maybe 50%, maybe a little more than 50%,
Yeah.
And then there's this whole video of them going over through like every single companion, and she's like, is that someone in like leather?
Who is this Leela? She doesn't seem to be wearing very much. What's going on here?
But it is kind of an interesting thing if you think about this episode and this era of Doctor Who, where obviously the choice is Amy's choice of like both which reality does she prefer and which man does she prefer, right? And at this point in the series, I feel like they went back to this not one too many times, several too many times. But this episode is sort of supposed to function as the one that is the most definitive, I think. That, Rory dies, she can't live without him, so she sacrifices herself. It's their whole Romeo and Juliet moment.
Yeah.
But again, within this, and certainly with extra material, and I think with the Doctor himself, there was a real possibility of going the other way.
Yeah.
And certainly if you think about all the stuff that happened between Tennant and Rose, and
indeed,
like the Doctor, again, like it's been obviously well established that Time Lords can swap genders at any time, but when they are one or the other, it seems like they are one or the other. Particularly when he's been a man. I mean, not overtly, not obviously their sexuality is different, but it is like. It's kind of there. I don't know, Damla. I need to get your opinion on this, certainly because you guys are all about this in your podcast and discussing things like this. What's your take?
So my take is this. So I just want to give a brief trigger warning, I guess, because I just wanted to touch on something with the whole Amy and Doctor thing first, which is so obviously in Flesh and Stone, at the end of Flesh and Stone, you get that absolutely horrific, awful scene where Amy sexually assaults the Doctor. That's what happens. Like, there's no ifs or buts. That's what happens. And it's I know, I think I've seen that Moffat has like regretted that in like years since, where he's like, I don't know why I did that, and it's like, well, we all know why you did it, but whatever, we move. And like, I think in terms of the way the Doctor has been written over the years, I think in Series 5, Series 6, there was very much this one specific lens with 11 specifically. I think in Series 7, maybe it's slightly different, but I know Series 5 and Series 6, I know, in my opinion, Stephen presents the Doctor very much like, he's a ladies' man. You know,
Yes.
I'm Mr. Sexy in the bow tie, me and River, maybe me and Amy sometimes, whatever. And it's like, I hate being here. I'm having the worst time. I personally, even as a kid, I always saw the Doctor as someone who was very like non-linear, very like just they are who they are. And I think it's very much like, you know, I see the Doctor as a very fluid, you know, being. Right. And like, you know, as someone who loves Nine and the Doctor, Nine and Rose and 10 and Rose. I mean, I've got my little Ninth Doctor mug here. Hey. Like, I'm a Rose and Doctor stan first and foremost. Let's not get it twisted. But like, you know, something I loved in Wild Blue Yonder, for example, was when Donna pointed out that, you know, the Doctor's always been a little bit queer, and it's like, absolutely, it's
like,
come on,
not far from the surface.
We clapped, we cheered, do you know what I mean? And it's like, I think just this kind of lens that Stephen's put on the Doctor, again, especially 11 in series 5 and series 6, I've just always despised. I just think it's like,
I think you're absolutely right, because it's the sort of sense that like he gets the ladies because he's so innocent. He just doesn't. Oh, I'm so bumbling and I'm cute and I wear a coat tie and I guess. And then later another, you know, like the time of the Doctor never rang true to me. The whole thing with Clara, the whole thing of like, you know, she says, "You're my boyfriend." He's like, "Oh, ding dong. I guess I better look at the manuals," which is a funny line. I get it, but also, and then like he's naked. Oh, Stephen, no. But it is interesting. You brought up the specials, and it's definitely interesting to reconsider this in the context of Wild Blue Yonder and his feelings for Newton and all that.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, isn't it, to consider the context of the giggle, where, you know, the Doctor's love for redheads pops up. In fact, there are in fact 2 mentions of redheads in the giggle. Yep. First time Donna says, "I wasn't the first redhead." Mel says, "No, that was me."
Yeah.
And then there's Neil Patrick Harris coming in and saying, "Doctor, he'd be liking the redheads, yeah." Yes. True. And so here we have, you know, perhaps his favorite redhead. I don't know. Certainly there always seemed to be more of a thing, whether you bought into it or not. There seemed to be always more of a thing between the Doctor and Amy, and it is weird. You know what? I also recently rewatched the 11th Hour, and that weirdness got to me. The fact that he knows her as a child, and then
so weird.
Yeah, right.
So weird. So we get a lot of let's say maybe some hate over on our pod because we're both not big fans of The Girl in the Fireplace.
Which is the same issue.
Yeah, it's the same issue. And we actually made a reel out of that, just like a soundbite, you know, as we do. And the comments were, there was a bit of ruckus. Because it's like, Stephen, you did it twice. You did it twice. Why, Stephen? Why? And it's like, it's just very strange. But
and he'd already given the Doctor River, right? He didn't need to do this. It was in fact a distraction from the River storyline.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I kind of like where he eventually landed with Pond. The fact that she, you know, shows up for the regeneration.
Yes. Yeah.
And that, to my mind, is always the explanation for why he has a Scottish accent the next time around.
Yes, I agree. I think that's absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
And then maybe it's the whole story, the whole arc of his time with Amy is sort of learning to love her as a friend.
I think so.
Yeah.
I you know, not to dwell on it too much, but I mean, I do love Amy and Rory, and like especially like the Doctor and Amy's complicated relationship. I do love it a lot. I just think in series 5 when you get this really annoying, awkward bit with it's like, okay, we're done with that. Cool, let's move on. You know, like I've always been.
I think that works. I think that he's sort of mirroring. This is Moffat, I think, taxing his coupling experience and sort of trying to bring in sort of a bit of realistic human relationships, which maybe doesn't translate and certainly doesn't translate well for everyone fully. In that, you know, you have this new friend group of the Doctor, Amy, and Rory. And, you know, they're all young and attractive, or at least look young and attractive. And you're kind of like, okay, seeing what happens, and maybe someone hooks up. But then if the friendship is strong enough, you kind of like move on from that. Okay, now we're all just friends. And that's sort of where we settle. And I think that's basically what happens here.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the core of it, the 3 of them, their dynamic and their friendship is so good. I mean, these 3 actors just, you can tell they really genuinely like each other. And they just have such great chemistry. I mean, even that whole first scene where they're waking up in the TARDIS and in Ledworth and on the bench, and there's sort of all the back and forth. It's like, you're huge, and then a few seconds later, are you pregnant? That sort of cluelessness that sort of works there. And this isn't so much about their dynamic, just because I'm talking about the scene, but I really love the very end of the cold open, just that last moment. He says, this is going to be a tricky one as he walks through them. And then the camera lingers on Smith for a second and he smiles.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's perfect. And they can't see him smile too, right? Because his back's to them at that point. Yeah. But it's like that whole sense of the Doctor's loving this. He just loves that there's something happening now and he's got to figure it out.
Yeah.
It may also be, I'm just thinking about it now, like this may also be the episode where the Doctor learns to love Rory, or maybe discovers that he has feelings for Rory. Because there is that brief moment where they kind of like realize that they've fallen asleep together. And,
yeah.
The Doctor's like, oh, sexuality check. What's going on here?
I was going to say, sorry, this is just a silly little anecdote, but I went through a phase when I was a teenager. It's over. I'm over it. I had a very brief moment where I was like, Rory and 11, anybody? Yeah. Heard of her? I'm not on that level anymore, but
was it 11 plus Rory with ponytail, or
no? It was more in series 7.
Okay. So later Rory. Yeah. More experienced.
Exactly, but no, that was just a silly little Momo I had. But no, I think he learns to really respect the two of them in this episode in a different way. I think, and I would say as well, I think it's again, something I like about this episode is it really puts a kind of full stop on the nonsense of. And again, Pete, I agree with what you said, because I think, when you're in a dynamic with people, sometimes, I've had it with friend groups where, some people want to go there and they're like, okay, that's not our dynamic. Let's be friends, And I agree with that. I just think my only main negative of the whole situation is the end of Flesh and Stone. Like, if that didn't happen in the way it happened, I would have been like, okay, whatever. But because it's so...
Yeah.
I know. No comment.
I have more of a problem with what they do later, which is they keep going back to this well of this will they or won't they, or this supposed tension, despite sort of the resolution of this episode.
Yeah, kind of.
So the big one that comes to mind is, I think it's Day of the Moon, where Amy's alone and she has this sort of speech of, I know you think it's him, but it's really you, and my life was so boring, and now you dropped out of the sky. And Rory hears this and thinks she's talking about the Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And they flip it later and she's talking about Rory. And it's like,
still playing
past this? I remember hearing that, or thinking that, sorry, at the time. I was like, come on, we're done with this. Are you kidding me? You're still doing this?
Yeah, that should have been the redemption. And actually, I want to bring up something else I think it does genuinely redeem is something that didn't sit right with me. Yeah. Speaking of the Doctor's relationship to companions and companions' boyfriends, is the way the Doctor would treat Mickey Smith. Never quite sat right with me. It always had jealous boyfriend vibes to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was always like, I'm going to prove I'm better than you. Whereas this is Moffat proving he's going to take Rory in a different direction. Like, the Doctor is going to learn to respect Rory. He's going to travel with Rory. And it is, this does cement the notion of, we're going to have the Ponds are a TARDIS team. Despite the fact that Rory gets erased, but, you kind of have to get them there to the point of being a team before you can sort of feel the lack of him, right? So this does establish that. So
is this Rory's first death?
Yes.
This is the first one. Okay.
Yeah.
There's another one coming up because it happens, I think, in was it Hungry Earth, or
it's the next two-parter. Yeah. I was going to say as well, this is a very bit of a random thing that I noticed, but it was really it really came across to me when I was watching it. I don't know how. I'm sure you guys have seen Torchwood, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. The relationship between Amy and the Doctor in series 5 really reminded me of the will they, won't they with Gwen and Jack, which I absolutely hate. I can't stress it enough. Literally, I burn it with fire and all of the things. I hate it. And a thing that reminded me of it as well is when Rory died. Yeah. And Amy saying to the Doctor,
what's the point?
You can save him. Can you save him? Well, if you can't, then what's the point of you? And it reminded me of when, Rhys died at the end of series 1 of Torchwood. And she's like, what's the effing point of you, Jack Harkness? What's the point if you can't save him? And it's just, there was a lot of parallels in that way for me as well. That's just what I noticed when I was watching it.
Oh, I just got chills. Yeah, absolutely. That is such a powerful moment, and I mean, again, so it's good that we brought up coupling, just to go back to that point, because this is written by Simon Nye, who created Men Behaving Badly. Which I didn't know was originally a book, and then it was a sitcom series, and a very, very influential one that briefly crossed the pond here. There was a Rob Schneider version.
I see what you did there.
Hey, no pun intended. There was a very bad American version of Men Behaving Badly, but obviously Moffat knew Simon Nye from that. He knew him through his mother-in-law as well, which is very random. So Moffat married producer Sue Virtue, her mother's Beryl Virtue, who I think was the producer on Men Behaving Badly. So it's like this very close-knit circle, and they were both Doctor Who fans. So he's like, "Hey, you're the right guy to write this sort of this really interpersonal drama, and also you're the right guy to write it cheap." Which is they really need to bring this one under budget.
Always important on Doctor Who.
Which it does. But, this is another one of those ideas where you're like, why didn't they consider this in the classic era? It's such a obvious idea when you think about it.
Well, it's kind of like they did a couple of TARDIS-bound adventures, certainly The Edge of Destruction and some other, I don't know, is there another one that was purely in the TARDIS? Probably, I'm not thinking of.
He does make a reference to the Space Museum, doesn't he, with the jumping of the time track, which is a really nerdy old school reference.
Wow.
I didn't even notice that. Oh my gosh.
I did not know that one because we haven't been to the Space Museum, but I didn't know that one until I looked it up.
Because that's really early on when they're like, they're waking up and he's like, we must have just jumped the time track or something.
Yes.
Got it. Oh, wow. How did I miss that? It's crazy. That's awesome.
That's also sort of classic Moffat era of like, we're just going to throw in one reference for the really old school fans. It would be like, he said the thing.
So I got to say, I got to go back to the comment, or sorry, the line from the Amy where she says, "What's the point of you?" Because I really want to give some props to Karen Gillan in this. Episode, because I think she is great. She really rises, and it's kind of like you think it's so early in her career, even of being an actress, and just sort of like I think this episode is one of the ones that just really shows like what she can do. And all of that stuff at the end where after post Rory disintegration, like you really believe it. Like she's really just falling apart and, just trying to fight back tears and just every sort of utterance works. But even before that, I mean, I really like the bit where she kind of puts the Doctor in his place where he's smug and has this attitude about their life in the village. And she just fakes the whole contraction. And you're all just like, whoa, but then she just says like, hey, like you just turned white as a sheet based on like me just yelling. Okay, so don't tell me this is boring. Asshole. Like I mean, like
likes that so much. Exactly.
It was like very, very cool. So
it's interesting that this was actually the last story of season 5 to be filmed.
Really?
Yeah, because they put this right at the end of the other block with the Lodger. I think they were
definitely feels like it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they did that.
Familiar with each other than you would think by having just a couple of because Rory's only been on with Vampires of Venice really at this point.
Yeah.
So they all get to like have foreknowledge of where their characters are going here and how this all works out. And they've got more experience. And that seems like so essential to this story because they really need that chemistry. They really need to know their characters inside and out. Otherwise, this doesn't work. So it does. Maybe that little bit of extra time that they got to sit with their characters before they filmed this really made the difference.
Yeah, anytime I see this episode, I just think of Confidential because I love Doctor Who Confidential and I used to watch it religiously. And the thing that always comes to mind is when Karen was on set and she had the baby bump on and she was wiggling it to the camera. And she was just like, look at my bump, woo! And they were all just having so much fun.
I read she really loved that bump. Like it was one of her favorite things ever on Doctor Who.
I implore everyone to go and look at that clip on YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's hilarious. It's great. I love it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I love confidentials. It's sort of I'm glad to know that they're going to be doing it again. I can't remember what they're calling it now.
Unleashed, yeah.
Unleashed.
Yeah, there's 3 episodes out now. No, 4 because of Church and Ruby Road, and I've watched every single one, and I'm just loving it. It's so fun. Yeah, it's really good.
Oh wow. Okay, I've got to track those down.
Yeah.
Doctor Who's been leashed until now, but now he's off the leash. Unleashed. Now, what do we think? So, again, interesting that I'd sort of watched 11th Hour recently before this because there's so much 11th Hour in it.
Yeah.
Like right down to like the eyeballs in the mouths of the pensioners.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's very Prisoner Zero God kind of thing. So it feels, like they're kind of almost repeating themes here.
A little bit.
And, that is, of course, where the Doctor first meets Rory, and Amy first gets there, and we first learn that they're getting married, right, with the great reveal at the end of the 11th hour of the wedding dress. So it's almost kind of a continuation. There's almost like I don't know if you could put together like a Ledworth trilogy with something else.
It's true, though, isn't it? Because I think that's why also I love Series 5, because it really feels like this kind of I don't want to say contained because I feel like that's the wrong word, but it's very consistent, but like kind of well-rounded season where it's like it's got very similar themes in it, and the vibe is always very similar. The color palette, the way it's shot, everything, and like even the creatures and like the way they look and everything is. No, I guess contained is the right word. I don't know. I just feel like it made it sound like it was a bit. I don't know. I just feel like it's well put together, and it's just Series 5 is very distinct in my mind. Like when I think about it, I'm like, Series 5, I see it in my head,
Yeah, like a complete structure, like a Van Gogh painting.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting that you're right. It just feels like a chapter of a book. And
exactly. Yes.
I don't think that you quite have that feeling with Moffat's and the other Smith seasons. They're a little more grab bag, especially Series 7, which was sort of split. Yeah,
I kind of feel that way about River's story in season 6, the way it kind of hangs together with that. I know that's a controversial statement for some people. They don't necessarily like season 6. We had, in fact, our last time we had a guest talking about Matt Smith was Dave Kitchen, the Doctor Who show, who quit watching after the Doctor's wife. And
really?
Yeah,
the Doctor's wife is.
I thought it was Let's Kill Hitler, or was it?
So it was Let's Kill Hitler was like the next one. Or next
sure.
So shortly after it.
Just saying those titles out loud, Doctor's Wife and Let's Kill Hitler, like so different.
Yeah.
Sort of these things that sort of stick out like sore thumbs, like the Almost People and other things like that, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't have sort of the cohesiveness.
I agree.
Maybe Series 5 has a little bit of that afterglow of the RTD era, where I think similarly the seasons were a little more arc structured and just had sort of a feel, a vibe to them, even if they didn't have a consistent look. And once Moffat was sort of had enough distance, was kind of doing his own thing, it just got a little more random, just as his writing did, frankly. So
ain't that the truth?
We should talk about maybe the weakest part of Amy's choice is the villain, the monster, the nondescript thing that's been there for billions of years, Doctor. I guess, or they've I can't even remember what it is. They fought an interstellar war, probably. And they had to settle in the suspensions. Whatever. But that is the Dream Lord, right? We should remember that, that's the Dream Lord coming up with a bad Doctor Who plot.
It's kind of like it isn't. I don't know. It's blink and you miss it, but the Doctor almost seems familiar with them. Like it seems like, because he actually sort of says the name. I think it only appears once in the script. It's like Echnidines. And I missed it every time I watched it. I had to look it up. But they say that they're humbled and destroyed by a neighboring race. Like the Doctor almost finishes the woman's sentence when she's talking about it. Like, oh yeah, you're those guys.
Oh yeah.
So it might be.
Are they or aren't they real? I don't know, because they don't seem like I say. Like first of all, their plot makes no sense, and they if they are these aliens. Why would you wait till this moment to reveal yourselves? And then why don't they just kill the Doctor, Amy, and Rory when they're just lying there asleep in front of them in the room?
Yeah.
Right? We might be taking more of an insight into the Doctor's mind than we wanted, more than we bargained for, by seeing that maybe he is just like making up a lot of this stuff about like, oh yeah, Ecnodines. Oh yeah. Yeah, I knew them.
Maybe.
I fought them 3 times. Yeah, I love their first 3 albums.
From my favorite historical period.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, Doctor's an Ecnodine hipster, but maybe he's just faking it in all these monsters, right? He's coming up with all these random names.
I like that theory, actually. Yeah.
I name you the boneless, all that stuff.
Well, I do like the jokes that it creates, right? Like, again, this is a good piece of comedy writing, and it's like the Dream Lord says at one point, "What is this, Attack of the Old People?"
Yeah.
And just the image of Arthur Darvill there with the board, like, it hit her, like,
yeah, Amy going, whack her! Best thing. Best thing ever.
Yeah, Doctor Who, very educational show, and also teaches you what it's like to whack a pensioner in the face.
Absolutely.
And it's well paced. I gotta say, the action. There's the bit where the Doctor's starting to fall asleep, and he's sort of flopping around on the road, and then eventually gets in the butcher shop.
Yeah,
and they just start playing "I Am the Doctor," which I'll just, I think I've said this before, but in my view, the second best piece of music the show has ever produced after the theme tune.
Yep.
And he gets in, and you're just kind of like, oh wow, like this, you're kind of like getting into it just from the music, even though he's just basically a flopping around guy on a street being chased by folks in walkers. They're sort of making it tense, which was, good stuff.
I love that.
Let's do a little bit of dream analysis here, right? Because you know how they say all characters in dreams are really you. And,
yes.
And that sort of you do get this interesting insight into the Doctor's psyche here, right? Because this is the Dream Lord is him, so we have to consider that everything in here is a factor or like a fear for the Doctor. Yeah. And here again, maybe this is another interesting reason for the randomizer to take us here after the specials, because of course now 14 is retired, essentially.
Yeah.
True.
Is in a retirement home, and maybe this is something that's been in the Doctor's psyche for some time. It's like, am I ever going to get to be in a retirement home? Is that going to be super boring? Is it?
Yeah.
Maybe he knows on some level like he has this PTSD and he should calm down and settle down, but no, he's the Matt Smith Doctor, so he's just like he can't contain himself. He's just all energy and it's all coming out that way. But maybe he knows in the back of his mind, like retirement is looming someday.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing he fears the most at this point in his life.
Maybe
right? He hasn't made that peace with himself that has enabled the 14th Doctor to do that, to take that break, which doesn't really even happen until the giggle.
Yeah.
It all tracks.
I also like that bit because, like, Doctor Who is based on like real fears, right? And obviously, there's the fear of like waking up and it still being a dream. So that's mostly what this episode is based on. But I also feel like curtain twitching pensioners is a thing that's sort of explored here, because you do get a few kind of chill down the spine moments of seeing someone at a window in this story, right? Which is not necessarily something I think Doctor Who has kind of explored before, that particular thing, like, or at least not like it multiple times. Everyone's looking at their window can be a super creepy thing.
Yeah, I think there are a few elements of this episode that are actually very eerie, actually. I mean, mostly it's like I find this episode to be kind of like a little bit like a dark comedy in a way, but there are elements where, like, you see a little old person in the background, like far away, and it's like, I don't like that. I have a thing about wides with like people in the distance, especially when there's like an eerie track in the background. Like I remember, again, sorry, I bring up again Wild Blue Yonder, when Jimbo was in the distance and it's like this big corridor. I was like, I don't like this feeling I'm having. It's very weird. So it's very that. But
it is.
I mean, hot take. I want a pensioner to be a new companion at some point. I would love that. I would love that.
If only it could have been Wilf.
Oh, yeah.
Too soon.
Too soon. I know. I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
No, I know what you're talking about, actually, with the thing in a distance. Like, that's a very primal. Like, I sort of feel like that's a cousin of whatever it was that freaked people out when there was that early film, of the train heading towards the screen.
Yes, absolutely.
In the 1910s or whatever. Like that, something coming from far away in your field of vision very quickly towards your field of vision can be kind of, or even if it's going slowly, you get a little tickle at the back of the brain.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Good behind the sofa stuff. So
right, folks.
maybe it's a good segue, Pete, to tell us what your kids thought of this. Were they scared by any parts of Amy's Choice?
It's funny. We've seen this one a few times, and I had seen it not super recently, but sometime in the last few months with them. So only Grace sat down and watched it with me, though Jack likes it. And the good thing was watching with Grace, because she's 10, even though she's seen some of these before, she doesn't remember all of them. And she didn't remember the twist that both of the worlds were fake. But she also really liked that the Dream Lord was the Doctor. Like that just was fascinating to her, and she liked that this episode had probably more to say about the Doctor's character than most of Doctor Who, because it very plainly says he's clearly full of self-loathing on some level. And that sort of comes out in here very clearly, but you start to see other stories maybe with that lens, and sort of maybe certain things make more sense, and maybe even just the whole idea that the Doctor just keeps on running, because he just doesn't want to face the consequences of all the things he's doing all over the place. That's obviously sort of touched on here, but she really liked that, she really loves Matt Smith. I think most people in my household do. And this is like, he's obviously, one of the, well, I mean, they're all pretty good, but he's really good in this, like a lot of great lines.
But nothing too sad or scary, like, Rory's death, or like the, pensioner being beaten up with a cricket bat or whatever. No, it's not. It's
a bit of wood, isn't it? It's like a stick of wood. Yeah.
If anything, she might have been disturbed by the kids being disintegrated at playtime.
That was weird.
A little too casual for. Again, it's more evidence that the upper Ledworth is not the reality, because it's like, really, did you just slaughter 20 or 30 school kids? Like, Doctor Who, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So
it would be interesting, wouldn't it, to sort of revisit this, do something like this again, but like fake you out where that is actually the reality. We are going to zoom 5 years ahead, and there has been a massacre on a playground. But yeah, you definitely wouldn't have done it at this stage in Who's history.
Yeah, I mean, bold choice for sure, and that's how you would do it in Doctor Who. There'd be nothing graphic; it'd just be like implied. But still, that's a chilling turning point, honestly, where the action starts to pick up, where it's like playtime's definitely over.
Yeah, and the fact that you don't see it, you're absolutely
show
right.
don't tell. Best way to do it.
And best way for the budget.
Exactly. But I was going to say, actually, I think, again, I don't have kids myself, but from what I've kind of seen in my time is like, I feel like 11 is very, very child friendly. Like a lot of younger people love the 11th Doctor, and I don't blame them, because he's just so much fun, and like, like you don't see many young people. I mean, you get some, like a lot of kids write letters to him, which is very sweet, but like you don't see loads of people being like, oh, I love 12. It's more like. I like 12. Hey, there's this thing online where people think I don't like 12. I don't like Series 8. It doesn't mean I don't like 12, okay?
Right.
Different things. Two different things.
Yeah.
But I think 11's for younger people, I think, is very popular. And it makes sense, because he's like the childlike Doctor, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you probably saw this thing Moffat said, Damla, recently about, how he could put like the darkest, most evil lines in Matt Smith's mouth. Yeah. And everyone be like, oh, he's so cute. And
bless
then he put the nicest, sweetest things in Capaldi's mouth, and everyone was like, ah! Oh, exactly. What did he say? What did those eyebrows say to me?
Which I kind of love. Kind of love a little bit. Yeah. Definitely.
All right, guys. I think it is time to answer a few questions. And those questions are, of course, the 4 questions to Doomsday. First question. Why did the randomizer take us here? All right. So,
well, we gotta talk about Ian and Barbara, right? Coming from the Reign of Terror, which is one of those moments, like we talked about this, right? How they're really, they're the first couple on the TARDIS. Like we just got to say it. Like it's so clear that the way that how close their faces are. You don't do that.
Which was probably because the set was so small.
Yeah, but still, they brought some chemistry to it, and so
definitely.
A lot of people think like Amy and Rory are like the first TARDIS couple. No, it's really Ian and Barbara, and the randomizer wanted to draw that connection.
Cool, that's a good connection. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why that didn't occur to me, but I was thinking about in the Reign of Terror is famously or infamously Doctor Who's first location work.
Oh, yeah.
And this is some very nice location work here. So there's that. And with Ian and Barbara, I did think of them, but I also thought of them on a different level because they wanted to leave in the Reign of Terror. This is sort of still the point where they always wanted to leave and go back to their own time, but they just about do it. And there's a bit where Amy is wondering about why they wanted to leave their life in the TARDIS.
Yes.
Because, like, why would we leave this? And it's more about, her and Rory and that whole dynamic and what's each of their desires. But it's a sort of an interesting parallel where Ian and Barbara can't wait to get home. And Amy's like, I can't wait to sort of stay here and be in this TARDIS life. So, yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if there was a William Hartnell story where he comes back to Ian and Barbara 5 years later and Ian's got a ponytail, Barbara's pregnant?
Oh.
That'd be so awesome.
Could he get away with a ponytail in like 1970 or whatever that was? I guess maybe, by the 70s.
But you could have Peter Cushing playing the Dream Lord, like, that would
I like that.
A whole other level of, like, bring in the movie Doctor. Yeah. Anyway. Sorry, just headcanon. Don't mind me.
Damla, any thoughts on why the randomizer took us here? I know you haven't been with us on our entire journey, but maybe just out of the singularity of this episode.
I would say, I definitely think it's, I think I'd agree with the, Ian and Barbara being the first couple on the TARDIS. I mean, that is, again, as someone who isn't a seasoned in classic Who, because I'm a fake fan. I'm still shocked that people don't remember that. It's like, come on, even if I haven't seen everything, even I know that is just the facts here. Like,
that's right. Their attitude towards each other from the Romans is sort of permeated through space and time as they're lying around in togas together. Like, everyone can feel the explosion of that chemistry, even if you haven't seen it.
Absolutely. And like, they're very, the episodes I've seen with them, they're just so sweet. And like, I know that when I finish Hartnell's run at some point, which I definitely will, I think they're going to be firm favourites of mine as well. So
yeah. Pete loves that TARDIS team, right?
Oh, the best, if not, I'll just say the best.
The original,
moving on to the second question. The second question being, what if the evil plot had succeeded?
Okay, so the evil plot is the Dream Lords?
Which is the Doctors.
So the evil plot is the Doctor's subconscious kills him and Amy and Rory somehow? I guess.
I think it's more that if the Dream Lord wins, they don't have the final realization at the end that the other TARDIS is a dream.
Yeah.
So then they keep going in this dream world TARDIS scenario.
Yeah.
And their bodies, they would die eventually, right? Like, because they would eventually just starve to death. At least Amy and Rory would. And then I think what you might have is the Doctor regenerates to Capaldi and that rocks him out of the dream. And then he realizes that Amy and Rory are dead.
Yeah. I don't know. I have this slightly, I don't know if it's silly, but like, they probably, I think Amy will. Okay, good, because I'm going to go silly. I think Amy and Rory would be dead. R.I.P. Rip. Love ya. Bye. But then the Doctor, you think the Doctor's about to freeze to death. He's like lying down, and then suddenly he just opens his eyes, and then it's just like, but what if I did this? And then kind of just fixed it. But then the Dream Lord kind of goes, do you know what? I've actually had enough. Like, I was actually just trying to have a bit of fun and you've actually ruined it. So whatever, I'm just going to snap you out of it because that's actually really annoying that you've, even in this dream scenario, you found a way to kind of live in it and like deal with it. I mean, obviously, like Amy and Rory are dead. That's, that's sad. But
yeah. And then you got a whole follow-up story where the Doctor's like trying to figure out how to dispose of their bodies while the Dream Lord's there making quips about it. Oh,
yeah. I just can't see a world where the Doctor doesn't win in some way or figure it out in some way, like in their weird kind of way. I don't know. I just can't see that happening.
Well, can I toss out the other evil plot potentially?
Do it.
Yes.
What if the evil plot is Amy's? And the evil plot succeeding is her choosing the Doctor.
Ooh.
Instead of Rory.
Yeah.
Well, I would switch off, and that would be the with the show. No thanks.
Go over. Roll credits.
Over.
Done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we have a bi-generation with Peter Capaldi stepping out of Matt Smith, being like, you know what? I'm just you go off and have fun with Amy. I'll be off here. I'll go.
We're going to go do this.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, something that I always find a bit off. I mean, I support women's rights, but most importantly, their wrongs. But in some scenarios, especially with Amy, when she says certain things, especially in this episode, when she says to Rory, oh, we could be the last night for our wedding for as long as we want. And it's that's actually so rude. Do you know how rude that is, what you've just said? So yeah, and all of that stuff, I'm just no. So yeah, if that happened, bye, respectfully, bye.
Yeah, and also you wouldn't get the events of season 6. You wouldn't get, would the Doctor meet River again? He'd have to meet River again somehow.
Right.
River will always come back.
River, then what happens with that dynamic if he's involved with Amy?
And also, yes, actually. Well, you know what? Amy and Rory have to happen because River has to happen.
Oh, that's right. That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Because then she's a paradox.
Then she's a paradox. We've already seen her. So, yeah.
This is true. Oh, yes.
That's actually, we've discovered the fail-safe, right? There is a fail-safe preventing the Doctor and Amy ever getting together. Sorry, Dr. Amy stands. Doctor/Amy writers.
No, it would make more sense her being part of Time Lord. I will say that.
Good point. But then River becomes the Doctor's daughter, and
in the TARDIS anyway. No, I'm not going
really
there.
no.
Okay, I went there.
The visions, the voices.
We've already got the Doctor's daughter. That's bad enough or good enough.
Exactly.
Guys, save us. Get us out of this question. We got to go to the third question now, immediately, which is where is the Clara Splinter? Clara Oswald, of course, splintered in time at the end of The Name of the Doctor. She's somewhere in every single Doctor Who story. Where is she in Amy's choice?
Can I just say, first of all, I love this question. I always love this question. I'm just I love that so much. Sorry, just side note.
Much opportunity for headcanon. And also here, we've got double opportunity for headcanon because there can also be Dream Clara Splinter. Yeah, and I actually think I'm going to tackle Dream Clara Splinter. I think that there is a Dream Clara in Dream Up at Ledworth, who's the one who is going around telling people not to worry about the fact that these 3 people just fell asleep. Don't worry, they're narcoleptics. They don't know it. I'm their doctor. I'm looking after them. It's all right. Just pretend like it's not happening. They'll wake up at some point. It's all good.
Yeah, I like that.
Perfect. I actually, that's good. I actually thought about her in the real world, and I know there isn't much real world here, but something had to put that psychic pollen in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining Clara as really just tired of this will they or won't they storyline. It's just okay, let's settle this once and for all. She leaves some of this stuff in the TARDIS to make sure they get this Dream Lord scenario and have Amy finally make a frickin' choice. All right.
I like that.
That's right. Yeah, and also if they don't resolve it, then Clara herself is not going to come into the Doctor's life.
Right.
Yeah, this is true.
Has to lose Amy and Rory to the Angels.
This is true. Oh, I feel like I want to have 2, which is probably cheating.
No,
No.
You get as many as you like.
I have a boring one and a silly one. The boring one is she lives in Ledworth and lives in a little cottage, which is also so cute, so aesthetic. Love that. In a little jumper. Oh, cute. Love that. And then, but she's kind of observing and the situation and kind of also helping the other villagers in that situation. So that's the boring one. But the fun one, I feel like I just now really stupidly have this image of her clinging to the outside of the TARDIS with this cold sun, whatever it's called. I think is it the cold sun? I forget.
Yeah.
Cold star, I think, yeah.
The cold star. Yeah. She's just trying to, I don't know, just trying to scrape the ice off. No, this isn't happening.
Yeah, she's out there with the de-icer. Yeah.
De-ice.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's trying to start the TARDIS, keeps trying to turn it over, and it just won't. Oh God!
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
What a mare! When you're trying to start the TARDIS. What a mare!
What a mare!
Yeah, I don't think the first one was boring, right? By the way, I thought it was
good.
really really good mare.
Good. I'm glad.
All right, it is time to move on to the final question, the ultimate question, the only question that matters for Amy's choice. What did we think of this story? The Pull to Open rating system has 6 ratings. There's the Dalek, which we give to a good episode of Doctor Who. The Ogron, which we give to an irredeemably bad episode of Doctor Who. The Professor Hater, which we give to a not-so-great episode, but hey, at least they tried something. The Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. The Fixed Point in Time, which is a show beyond rating, often for reasons of nostalgia. Or The Lady Cassandra, which is a paper-thin plot, but hey, at least it looks good, especially with a little moisturizing. All right, Damla, as soon as you answer our 10-question quiz on our rating system, you can rate this episode. But how we like to do these things is typically Chris and I will go first, and you can either be the tiebreaker or go independent.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Well, let me.
You go.
Okay, so let me just say, I was telling Dan this before we started recording, that I really wanted to make this a Viscount. Like, I wanted to find any way to make it a Viscount banger. I love Amy's Choice. I have a lot of affection for it. It's a great watch. It's got a lot of good repeatability. I think the thing that just stops it short of banger territory is that the Dreamlord thing is underexplored and kind of never explored again, right? If this was the beginning of like a Dreamlord trilogy, if Toby Jones came back, by the way, RTD, he's still available. Just saying, be interesting to see.
Commanding a higher paycheck now. It's post-Marvel Toby Jones.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got Disney money now, so maybe Disney has an option on Toby Jones that can just bring him back for that. But yeah, I think it's so underexplored that it just had so much potential. But I gotta say it's a Dalek. At the end of the day, it's one of my favorite Daleks, possibly, but still doesn't quite rise to a banger.
100% agree. It's a Dalek. It's a dreamy Dalek. It's a really nice standalone. It's not as doesn't hold up to as many repeated viewings as I think some other episodes. There's not as many stand up and cheer moments as you might get in, say, like a Day of the Doctor or what have you.
All right, it's slow burn.
But I do like it's got such good writing, good performances, and it does, at least for this moment, seemingly resolve the whole love triangle thing. So it's got sort of weighty character development type stuff too. And like my daughter said, it actually says a lot more about the Doctor than I'd say 95% of Doctor Who. So yeah, it's a really nice Dalek, but yeah, it's not a banger. Just doesn't quite rise to that level with all the things it does right. Doesn't quite get over a certain activation energy for that.
Yeah, I'm not just saying this. I swear I'm not saying this, but it's a Dalek for me, 100%. 100%.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous. It's such fun. Like every time I do a rewatch of the show, I do sometimes skip some episodes, not gonna lie. There's some episodes I skip in series 5, like, Victory of the Daleks, but
I actually like Victory of the Daleks, but we'll get there when we get there.
You will get there. Yeah. Save it. But no, this episode, every time I rewatch it, I just have such a blast with it, even though, again, there's a few little elements where I'm just like, not quite, but I think it's really, really fun. And like someone who loves Inception, one of my favorite films of all time, I love when people play with dreams. Like it's something I really enjoy, and just
now, and again, was right around the same time, right? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, it actually might be, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it might be. That was 2010 as well. So obviously not inspired by Inception, but maybe it was just something in the air. People got some dreams.
Maybe he saw the trailer and was like, quick.
Hey, Simon, you jump on this.
A dream.
I just love dreams and like the whole concept of dreams. And again, even though, like, we said some of it was a bit obvious and there could have been a bit more mystery around it if it was maybe pushed further in the season or something. I still just have so much fun with it. So yeah, Dalek for sure.
All right, it's
all around.
3 Daleks, as many Daleks as there were in Deaths of the Daleks. And many other.
We're the cult of Skaro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to have one extra Dalek. If when we have a 3 Dalek rating, we need one extra Dalek that just sits off the side, just doesn't move.
Yes, exactly.
But you kind of distract attention from it. Look at these other Daleks over here.
There were 4. Hold on. Good stuff. All right. Well, we're going to have to wake up from this dream of a podcast at some point, but not before we head into our Codex and activate the randomizer.
That's right.
Rather, I'm getting my nouns mixed up. The Codex is part of the randomizer.
That's right. The randomizer consists of 2 parts. The Codex is the part that has all of the Doctor Who stories listed in sequential order, and counts down how many we have left to do. Pete, what's the magic number?
It is now 193, now that I've just marked off Amy's choice.
Oh my gosh.
193, and that will tick up again come the spring. Come Shooty's first season, but not yet. We're at 193. And Damla graciously agreed to handle the other part of the randomizer, which we call the Executor, which is played by random.org. So yes, if you go to random.org on your browser, you'll find a website that provides true randomness, not the fake randomness of, the dream randomness of algorithms, but true randomness, which uses atmospheric noise. That's right, bits of psychic pollen dancing around the atmosphere, and bounces off them and gives us a number. So Damla, if you go to random.org, you enter 1 and 193 as the 2 numbers, and then before you hit the generate button, we'd like to give the randomizer some challenges.
Okay.
We started off calling them challenges. I really think we ought to call them prayers, or just like begging the randomizer, because the randomizer does love to hate on us and send us where we don't want to go, where we need to go, perhaps. Always sends us where we need to go. Pete, what's your request of the randomizer?
I do feel like there are not as many episodes, like I say, that explore the Doctor's psychology and his character in anything more than a superficial way. And since I got a taste of it here, I want the randomizer to prove me wrong. Like, show me something that maybe I have seen before, but actually has some deepness to the Doctor and himself or herself, and what the character is. So I want some deep Doctor psychology.
Yeah. Well, that's an appropriate moment to give a shout out to The Psychology of Time Travel. Excellent book that also references Doctor Who, by the way. British novel. Love that one. Talking about the effects of time travel. But yeah, I like that idea. Like, let's see the psychology of the Doctor, perhaps the psychology of how he or she is affected by time travel. That's got to be in there somewhere. I'm going to say give us more dreams. Like, anything else that references a dream, or maybe the realm of the unreal. Maybe we're going to get some...
This.
What don't we want? What?
Never mind. You don't want to know. It's a Pertwee episode. It's actually the Time Monster.
The Time Monster.
Actually,
okay.
Let's do it. Let's do it. It has a dream. It actually opens with the Doctor having a dream.
Okay. Yeah. I've not seen the one, so I'd be excited to see that. But like the Mind Robber, that's also in a like more ethereal space. Like that's
a dream.
Yeah. Let's have a dream-like environment. And Damla, you can also give the randomizer request. Even though you don't have to watch the results, you can just request the Daleks' master plan and giggle evilly as you saunter away.
Well, I think it'd be really fun for you guys to cover a bit more Smith, because, like you said, you haven't had as much of that, and I think that'd be really fun.
Perfect.
I think that'll be mine. I think, because that's a real shame, because it's such a fun era of the show to explore.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have a favourite Smith? Perhaps not counting Day of the Doctor, which we've already done.
I would say my favourite Matt Smith episode is I really like Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS a lot. I know that's a really controversial one. I think it's really fun. I just really like it.
You know what? I've asked for that in previous requests to the randomizer, that we see more of like the more TARDIS interior. We did Invasion of Time, which is sort of one of the famously bad exploration of the TARDIS interior. But maybe this is the moment. So, all right. Well, when we're ready, Pete will give you a countdown. You hit the generate button and tell us what number the executor has given us.
All right, Damla, your finger on the button?
Yes.
All right, in 4, 3, 2, 1.
Excellent.
Okay, 17.
17. Whoa,
Oh, it's early,
we're
it's
early.
early.
We're very early. And we are at, if I can scroll to the side, the moon base.
Oh, Troughton,
I almost
yes.
asked for Cybermen. I almost, when I was doing my request, I was like, should I just go completely non sequitur and just say, we haven't had Cybermen in a while. Let's do some Cybermen.
Well, you know what?
It read my mind.
The moon is traditionally associated with dreams. So there's
there you go.
connection right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the moon, the dream self, the dream side, the dark side.
People say Troughton is very similar to Smith's Doctor. So I guess that's a slight connection there.
Yeah.
And also, look, I'm wearing the TARDIS Dark Side of the Moon t-shirt.
It's a very cool t-shirt. Very cool t-shirt.
How could it not be? It's interesting. So this is an episode that was missing for a long time. It was recovered. I read I think I still have the novel. And it is, I don't even know if I've seen it. I might have seen it once when it was first recovered, but this is going to be kind of new territory. So this is awesome. I love seeing sort of recovered episodes.
Excellent.
Stuff I didn't grow up with.
Thank you, Damla, for operating the randomizer there. Good job.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
We'll be back to check out that base on that giant egg in the sky next time. But first, folks, hey, just so you know, this is Pull to Open. It's a podcast. It's something you can subscribe to on whatever service you're on. Go ahead and give us a follow. We're also on social media at Pull to Open on TikTok and Blue Sky, and Pull to Open 63 on basically everything else. Don't forget, you guys on YouTube, you can become a true companion of the podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to our membership, and you will be able to get the podcast a day early. Also, don't forget to check out Come Along Pod. I almost said pod. Come Along Pond.
Come Along Pod
Podcast. Damla, where can people find you?
You can find us on Instagram, Come Along Pond Podcast on Instagram. You can find us on TikTok. In their TikTok muted half of our flipping videos. That's the story for another day. You can find us on TikTok. But yeah, you can find us on. We have a Patreon as well. So if anyone wants to support our show, we're on Patreon. But yeah, the main place is Spotify. That's where we have most of our listenership come from. So we're on Apple as well. But yeah, I'd say Spotify is a good one.
Well, if you're on Spotify, don't forget to vote on Amy's choice. It should be on your screen right now as you're listening to us. And then go and follow Come Along Pond and get notified on their next episodes. And very excited. I've actually been looking at the description of the moon base as we've been talking, and there is Jamie does have a dream in it. There's a dream of a phantom piper that he sees, so that'll be interesting.
That's fun.
And we've got a three companion TARDIS crew, so it could be interesting to explore that dynamic. Ben, Polly, and Jamie.
Oh, that next time there's three of them.
Indeed.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you so much, Damla, for dropping by. Martin West, thank you for your music as always, and we will see you next time on the moon.